July 27, 1944, near Saint-Elagas, Normandy, France. An 88mm shell tore through the hull of an American Sherman with a piercing metallic scream. By all accounts, the crew of 5 should have been doomed. Watching through his sight, a Panther gunner from the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich waited for the familiar fireball. A direct hit meant certain destruction. He ordered the driver to advance 20 mm for a better shot at the second tank. But to his shock, no flames appeared. Instead, the Sherman's turret swung toward them, the 76mm gun locking in for a counterattack. The German loader froze, stunned. That American tank should have been a blazing wreck. Every manual, every briefing, every past battle, from Russia to North Africa, taught them this was inevitable. Yet this time, nothing matched their expectations. What the German crew had just witnessed was something they never imagined, a fundamental change in tank warfare that had slipped completely past German intelligence. The Sherman they fired upon was an M4A376W, equipped with the new wet-stowage ammunition system. Its double-walled storage bins were filled with 38 gallons of fire-suppressant liquid, preventing the catastrophic ammunition explosions German crews had relied on since 1942. This design, introduced in all Shermans built after January 1944, slashed the chance of ammunition fires from 60-80% to just 10-15%. That morning, across the Norman countryside, the U.S. 2nd Armored Division attacked with 104 of these upgraded Shermans, yet not a single German intelligence report. Not one order from the Waffen Command. Not even rumors at the front had warned crews that their long-standing assumptions about American armor were now dangerously outdated. This breakthrough had its roots in failure. On February 14, 1943, at Kasserine Pass in Tunisia, American tanks were slaughtered. The battlefield was littered with burning Shermans, many struck by German 88mm guns. Out of 300 tanks engaged, 183 were destroyed, most consumed by ammunition fires that killed entire crews in seconds. The British Operational Research Section noted that 65% of knocked-out Shermans burned completely. American studies revealed even worse figures, with some battles seeing 80% of tanks lost to fire. The U.S. Ordnance Department's Tank Automotive Center conducted a full study of every destroyed Sherman in North Africa. Their findings were clear. Fuel was not the main problem. It was the ammunition propellant. Over 70 rounds stored openly in the fighting compartment turned each penetration into an instant inferno. The search for a solution led to innovation. In November 1943, a DuPont chemical engineer at a tank board meeting suggested surrounding the ammunition with liquid. Early versions sounded unrealistic, like filling the entire crew space with water, turning tanks into submarines. But gradually the idea took shape. Engineers developed double-walled ammunition containers with liquid-filled cavities, placed low in the hull where hits were less likely. By December 1943, the Pressed Steel Car Company in Pennsylvania had begun retooling its production lines. On January 3, 1944, the first M4A176W rolled off the line. The W stood for wet, though few beyond the factories knew what it meant. Testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground exceeded expectations. Captured German 75mm and 88mm guns were fired directly at the ammunition storage. Dry storage exploded 73% of the time. Wet storage ignited in only 15% of cases. Classified test films, not revealed until 1963, showed the stark difference. Dry ammunition erupting in fire pillars versus wet storage producing only brief smoke, quickly put out by the liquid. The system was thoroughly engineered. Each bin held 10 rounds inside concentric double walls filled first with water, then a water glycol mix, and eventually a special solution known as amudamp. Chemistry played a vital role. Water alone froze in winter. Glycol prevented freezing but caused corrosion. Amudamp, a mixture of ethyl sodium potassium phosphate, solved both problems while maintaining fire suppression. The M4A375W could carry 100 rounds in hull storage plus 4 ready rounds protected by 37. 1 gallons of liquid. The 76mm variant stored 71 rounds with 36. 6 gallons of protection. This upgrade added around 900 lb to the tank's weight, but drastically increased survival rates. By April 1944, 130 M4A176W Shermans were in England. The U.S. 2nd and 3rd Armored Divisions each received 52 of the new tanks, but deployment was initially held back. Concerns about training with the 76mm gun and ensuring ammunition supply delayed their use during the D-Day landings. Their combat debut came during Operation Cobra, launched on July 25, 1944. At 0938 hours, the operation began with one of the largest tactical bombing campaigns in history. As the smoke lifted over St. Lo, American armor surged forward. Among them were the first wet-stowage Shermans to see battle in Europe. Facing them were Panthers of the Panzer divisions, many already battered by bombing. German after-action reports, later captured when headquarters fell, revealed growing confusion. Penetrations were achieved, but Shermans were not burning as expected. Their old battlefield advantage had vanished. Many German gunners were shocked when their targets kept fighting or simply pulled back instead of bursting into flames. What they didn't realize was that they were engaging M4A376W and M4A176W Shermans from the 67th and 33rd Armored Regiments. Tanks they thought destroyed were often back in service within 48 hours after quick field repairs. The few that did burn were usually hit in the engine compartment, not in the ammunition racks. The new protection system was working exactly as intended. German defensive plans, built on the assumption that American tanks would be lost in large numbers, began to fail. Shermans were surviving at rates the Germans hadn't anticipated, and counterattacks launched against what they assumed were weakened spearheads instead met with unexpectedly strong resistance. The engineering behind this protection was remarkable for its time. Each ammunition bin was a carefully built double-walled container with a 1.5 in space between the inner and outer walls. Each 10-round cell held about 0.5 gallons of liquid in these gaps. Development moved unusually quickly by military standards. Early water-only systems tested in October 1943 proved the idea but revealed major problems: freezing in cold weather, corrosion of brass shells, and bacterial growth in stagnant water. Adding ethylene glycol solved the freezing issue but worsened corrosion. The final answer was a mixture called Amodamp, made with ethyl sodium potassium phosphate plus rust inhibitors and biocides. Amodamp stayed liquid down to 40 degrees Celsius, prevented corrosion, stopped bacterial growth, and suppressed fire more effectively than water. Each tank had to be filled initially, and then checked regularly through inspection ports. Ordnance Department records showed the system worked even better than expected. When fragments pierced a bin, the liquid soaked the propellant before it could ignite. Even if some powder caught fire, the spread was stopped, protecting the rest of the ammunition. What once meant total loss was now often just minor damage. Meanwhile, German intelligence was still working with outdated data. At Kummersdorf Proving Ground, technical experts studied Shermans captured in Tunisia, long before wet stowage existed. The tanks they examined were M4A1 models from the U.S. 1st Armored Division, taken at Sidi Bouzid in February 1943. Their reports were thorough, covering Sherman armor layout, engine performance, transmission, and ammunition storage. Drawings showed ammunition racks in the sponsons above the tracks, and Panzer crews were instructed to aim for those spots for maximum effect. Training schools from Putlos to Paderborn drilled students to target the sponsons, and range cards for anti-tank units marked those areas in red. This doctrine became so ingrained that when hits on sponsons no longer produced fires, German crews assumed they had simply missed the ammunition. The timing was disastrous. German evaluations wrapped up just as American factories were rolling out modified Shermans. Every intelligence update after that relied on the older reports. When frontline units began sending in complaints about unusually resilient Shermans, staff officers dismissed them as stress-induced exaggerations. The shift in U.S. tank production during early 1944 was a feat of industrial organization. Fisher Tank Arsenal in Grand Blanc, Michigan, moved from M4A2 to M4A3 production and added the new ammunition system without pausing the assembly line. Between February 1944 and March 1945, Fisher produced 3,111 M4A3 75W tanks. This required major changes: redesigned hull floors to fit ammunition bins below the turret basket, new stamping dies, reworked welding jigs, and updated assembly procedures. The partial turret basket, replacing the older full floor design, was necessary to reach the new ammunition racks. This also meant rerouting hydraulic lines, electrical cables, and control systems around the redesigned layout. The Press Steel Car Company in Pennsylvania achieved similar success. Starting M4A176W production in January 1944, they built 3,426 units by July 1945. Their challenge was integrating the wet-stowage system with the new 76mm gun, which required turret changes, new ammunition types, and weight adjustments. By June 1944, all new Sherman tanks rolling off American assembly lines were wet-stowage variants. The transition was executed so smoothly that German intelligence, still relying on captured 1943 models, had no idea anything had changed. Normandy became the proving ground for this hidden innovation. The hedgerows forced combat at short distances, where German guns could easily penetrate Sherman armor. Yet American tank losses often proved recoverable. Reports from the U.S. Third Army's maintenance units showed that during Operation Cobra, 67% of knocked-out Shermans were repaired and returned to service. Tanks that would once have been destroyed in flames were instead salvaged, with roughly 70% restored thanks to the new protection system. This invisible boost in American tank numbers disrupted German plans at every stage. War diaries from German commanders expressed growing frustration, noting that American armor seemed to have limitless reserves. In reality, it was not endless numbers. It was survivability that kept Shermans coming back into battle again and again. German crews were landing hits with their Panthers. Many even scored full penetrations, but a growing number of Shermans refused to die. American recovery teams hauled back tanks the Germans assumed destroyed, repaired them, and put them back into action. The loss calculations used by German staff, based on older models of American tanks bursting into flames, no longer worked. Major General Maurice Rose's 3rd Armored Division led the advance with nearly 200 upgraded Shermans. Over the course of 7 days of brutal fighting, the division pushed forward 100 miles, fought multiple engagements, and kept its momentum even under German counterattacks designed specifically to wipe out American armor. The German counterstroke, Operation Luttich, the Mortain counteroffensive, was launched on August 7th with 4 panzer divisions. Their entire plan depended on the belief that American armored spearheads would already be exhausted and reduced in strength. But German intelligence underestimated American tank numbers by about 40%, failing to account for the Shermans recovered and repaired, thanks to the new protection system. At Mortain, the stand of the U.S. 30th Infantry Division, backed by tank battalions armed with modified Shermans, stopped the German offensive cold. The 743rd Tank Battalion, in particular, endured wave after wave of assaults from SS and Wehrmacht panzer units. Despite taking repeated penetrations, they held their ground and remained combat effective through 6 grueling days. The clearest demonstration of the Sherman's transformation came at the Battle of Aricourt in September 1944. On September 19th, the German 113th Panzer Brigade launched an attack, expecting to surprise and crush U.S. armor with their superior gunnery. Their initial blows scored several hits against Shermans of the U.S. 4th Armored Division. Panthers and Panzerfees reported multiple penetrations at good ranges, yet the American reply shocked them. Instead of pulling back with crippling losses, the 4th Armored Division counterattacked with unexpected strength. The statistics reveal the truth. During the Aricourt battles, the division lost 151 Shermans, but only 41 were total write-offs. The remaining 110 were repaired and sent back to the front, most within a week. German intelligence, counting all of 151 as permanent kills, assumed the 4th Armored was no longer effective. Instead, it kept fighting and held the initiative. General Patton, initially doubtful of the 76mm Shermans, reversed his opinion after Aricourt. The Third Army soon accepted only 76mm wet-stowage models, recognizing that better firepower combined with improved survivability gave American crews a decisive edge. By autumn 1944, the next generation of Shermans entered the fight. The M4A3E8 Easy 8 brought lessons learned into a new design. It featured improved suspension, wider tracks to handle the added weight, and refined ammunition storage for better crew access. These began reaching frontline units in October 1944. Another specialized version, the M4A3E2 Jumbo, had been in production since June 1944 and came with wet stowage from the start. With frontal armor up to 4 in and turret armor as thick as 6 in, the Jumbo could take massive punishment. Combined with the ammunition protection system, these tanks reached survivability rates that astonished German observers. By November 1944, the U.S. First Army had 105 M4A3E2 Jumbos spread across its tank battalions, while the Third Army fielded 90 across 6 battalions. These jumbos spearheaded assaults on fortified German defenses, soaking up punishment that would have wiped out entire companies of older Sherman variants. When Germany launched Operation Wacht am Rhein, the Ardennes offensive, on December 16, 1944, their planning still relied on outdated assumptions. They believed American tank losses would mirror the patterns of 1943, with Shermans easily destroyed in concentrated panzer attacks. German officers assumed that once armored reserves were eliminated, they could roll forward. But the protected Shermans upended their timeline. On December 19th, SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper's Kampfgruppe, leading the 1st SS Panzer Division, ran into this reality near Stoumont. His Panthers achieved multiple penetrations against Shermans of the 743rd Tank Battalion at close range. Yet the Americans kept fighting. In post-war interrogations, Peiper admitted his frustration. He could not understand why American tanks continued to resist after hits that should have destroyed them. The 761st Tank Battalion, the African-American unit known as the Black Panthers, demonstrated these advantages throughout their remarkable 183 days of continuous combat, including in the Ardennes. Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers, who would later be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, embodied this survivability. On November 19th, his tank took 2 direct hits that penetrated the hull, but the ammunition did not ignite. Despite his injuries, Rivers kept fighting, and his crew survived hits that would have killed them all in earlier Sherman versions. By early 1945, German forces were capturing more wet-stowage Shermans intact. During Operation Nordwind, they seized multiple M4A3 75W tanks from the U.S. 43rd Tank Battalion near Herlesheim. German crews even operated some of these captured tanks for several days, never realizing the importance of the liquid-filled ammunition containers. By that point, the Waffen's technical intelligence branch was barely functioning, and the chance to identify the breakthrough had passed. The few German technical experts still active by 1944 were focused almost entirely on wonder weapon projects, not on examining captured enemy tanks. Even if frontline soldiers had realized the importance of the Sherman's new ammunition storage, there was no system in place to pass this information up the chain. After the war, the U.S. Army's Operations Research Office documented the impact and study OROT-117. Their findings were clear. Older Shermans with dry ammunition racks caught fire in 60 to 80% of penetrations. Wet stowage Shermans burned in only 10 to 15% of cases. This simple change multiplied the effectiveness of American armored units in ways the Germans never accounted for. Imagine a battalion of 50 Shermans taking 30 penetrating hits. With dry storage, 18 to 24 tanks would be lost to fire. With wet stowage, only 3 to 5 would burn, leaving 25 to 27 repairable. That difference meant a unit could stay in action instead of being wiped out. Across Europe, this advantage stacked up. Conservative estimates suggest at least 1,000 tanks were saved from burning, protecting more than 5,000 trained crew members and keeping dozens of battalions combat-ready. German planning never reflected these realities. Every major operation relied on outdated assumptions about Sherman vulnerability. The result was thousands of battles fought on the basis of flawed data, directly contributing to defeat. Post-war interviews confirm the gap. Not one German commander or veteran memoir from the war years mentions recognizing this change. Otto Carius, who destroyed over 150 enemy tanks, rode in tigers in the mud without ever noting unusual fire resistance. Ernst Barkmann's account of his famous stand made no mention of Sherman's surviving hits that should have destroyed them. Even unit histories from divisions like Panzer Lehr, 2nd SS Panzer, and 116th Panzer make no reference to improved survivability. These weren't censored official reports, but private recollections written after the war. The wet stowage system stands as one of the most complete intelligence blind spots in modern warfare. Several factors created it. German engineers tested Shermans captured before the upgrade existed. Once wet stowage entered the battlefield, Germany was mostly on the defensive with fewer chances to study captured vehicles. Organizational failures meant observations from the field rarely reached analysts. Rival intelligence agencies hoarded information instead of sharing it. Captured tanks were rushed into service instead of examined. And cultural arrogance about German technical superiority left little interest in studying American designs closely. The brilliance of wet-stowage was its invisibility. It didn't alter the outside of the Sherman, required no new tactics, and announced nothing to an observer. German intelligence searched for dramatic shifts and missed a quiet revolution happening inside the tank. The lessons are timeless. Technical intelligence must always be updated. What was true yesterday may no longer apply today. Game-changing advances don't need to be dramatic. Incremental improvements that solve real problems can matter more than complex redesigns. For engineers, wet-stowage shows the value of practical design. Identify the problem, create a workable solution, and implement it quickly. Intelligence professionals can also see the risk. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you fail to recognize. The Sherman's wet-stowage ammunition system reduced the chance of catastrophic fire by 75% and saved thousands of Allied lives. Its greatest strength, however, was that the Germans never realized it existed. From its introduction in January 1944 until the war ended in May 1945, every major American armored offensive used large numbers of these improved Shermans. German troops captured and operated hundreds of them without ever noticing the hidden change. American engineers built the system to save crews, not to trick the enemy. Yet its invisibility turned it into a weapon of deception as well. It proved that fast, practical innovation could beat Germany's obsession with technical perfection. History should remember wet-stowage not only as a key improvement, but as the hidden modification that won battles by staying unnoticed. In the end, German tank crews fought the wrong enemy. Their outdated assumptions left them using tactics that no longer worked. The result was more than just saved American lives, it was a shortened war. Multiplied across countless battles, this simple change helped bring Nazi Germany to defeat. A quiet innovation that changed everything, while remaining invisible to those who most needed to see it.